Welcome to Betrayal Stories. In today's video, before we begin, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story like this one. What you're about to hear isn't a tale of sudden explosions or dramatic screaming matches. It's a slow-burning story of loyalty tested, trust shattered, silence weaponized. And how betrayal doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it arrives quietly, carrying a suitcase, closing a door, and leaving you alone with everything you once believed in. It was just after 6 in the evening when I stepped into our house in Elmhurst. My phone was dead, my shoulders ached, and another investor call had ended with polite rejection disguised as optimism. I dropped my laptop bag near the door, already bracing myself for the familiar sounds of home. The television humming in the background, a glass clinking in the kitchen, Madison's voice asking if the call went any better this time. But none of that came. Instead, the house felt stiff, like it was holding its breath. Madison was standing in the living room, folding clothes with a sharp mechanical focus, placing each item neatly into an open suitcase on the floor. She didn't look up when I walked, and for a moment I just stood there trying to convince myself I was misreading the scene, that maybe she was packing for a short trip, a visit to her sister, something temporary. My voice came out flat but loud in the quiet room. "Going somewhere?" I asked. She zipped the suitcase closed with finality and only then lifted her eyes. To meet mine, there was no anger in them, no sadness either, just distance. "I want a divorce, Brandon," she said calmly. The words didn't register at first. I blinked, like the room had tilted. "What?" I asked, not because I didn't hear her, but because my mind refused to accept it. She repeated it just as evenly. No tremor, no hesitation. "I'm done." "Why?" I asked. "Why now?" My voice cracked despite my effort to keep it together. "You choose now, when everything's already falling apart." She crossed her arms, defensive but composed. "Exactly. I need at least one part of my life that isn't collapsing." Heart pounded hard against my ribs. "So your solution is to leave your husband when he's drowning?" "I'm not your lifeguard," she replied coolly. "You gambled everything on that startup and lost. You're not the man I married anymore." Something snapped in me. "The man who paid off your student loans? The man who supported your art studio for 3 years? That man?" Her jaw tightened. "This isn't about the past. It's always about the past," I shot back. "You knew what this would cost. You were right there when I took the risk." She looked away, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I was with a man who had potential. Now you're just clinging to a dead idea." The words landed like a punch. The air felt heavier. "Have you met someone?" I asked. She froze for half a second. Not long enough to confess, but long enough to betray herself. "No," she said. I didn't believe her. She wheeled the suitcase toward the door. "I won't beg," I said quietly. "If this is who you are, then go." She paused, her hand on the knob. "I knew you wouldn't," she said. Then she was gone. No tears, no goodbye. Just the soft click of the door closing behind her. I stood there, alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by the life we had built together. Everything she'd just walked away from as if it were an expired lease. That night, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt sharp, alive. But I didn't sit down. I didn't scream. I didn't collapse. Something else had already begun to take root inside me. This wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the beginning of something darker and harder. I sat in the armchair by the fireplace, still in my jacket, lights off. The house lit only by a street lamp outside and the faint glow of the microwave clock. I opened the cabinet and pulled out a bottle of whiskey I'd been saving for a celebration. That never came. The cork popped too loudly. I drank straight from the bottle, not to get drunk, just to dull the edges. The startup replayed in my mind, once full of promise, now barely breathing. Investor emails I didn't want to read, declines, final notices, I swiped them away. Not tonight. Her number was still pinned at the top of my phone. Stared at it, thumb hovering. I didn't call. Instead, I scrolled through photos, birthdays, trips, a hospital hallway selfie after my father passed, her head on my shoulder. I locked the phone and set it down. I'm not begging. I whispered into the room. She didn't just leave. She waited until I was broke, exhausted, cornered. Then she walked. That wasn't heartbreak. That was insult, quiet and deep. But I wasn't going to drown. I raised the glass one last time. The last man standing. I muttered DAT. 2 days later, the rain followed me into the office. The lobby was empty. The 5th floor echoed with my footsteps. Half the desks were gone. Derek was already there, hunched over coffee. Madison left, I said. He looked up slowly. She's gone. Divorce. Silence stretched between us, until he sighed. I've been meaning to talk to you. My stomach dropped. I'm pulling out, he said. I've got another job lined up, just like that. Another lifeboat launched while I stayed on the sinking ship. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. People leave. That was the lesson life kept repeating. The divorce hearing was quick and cold. I gave her the house, the car, everything except the company. I kept that, not because it was valuable, but because it was mine. 3 days later, I was living out of my car, not sleeping in it yet, just surviving. That's when the message came. Nicole. Madison's single quotes S. younger sister. If you need a place to crash, my couch is open. I hesitated. Pride screamed. Reality 1. Her apartment smelled like cinnamon and safety. She didn't pity me. She didn't interrogate me. She just gave me space. Over time, that space turned into something else. Shared meals, late conversations, quiet understanding. She saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. Slowly, the company stabilized. 1 client. Then, 2, confidence returned. So did purpose. Months later, profit finally hit 6 figures. I stared at the screen like it might disappear. Nicole laughed from the kitchen. Life felt real again. I told her I loved her on a rooftop under string lights. She smiled and said she'd been waiting. When Madison texted, I didn't flinch. When? She showed up, broken and regretful. I listened. Then I let her go. Some doors don't reopen, not because of anger, but because peace lives on the other side. Derek paid in court. Accountability arrived quietly. I proposed to Nicole with a simple ring, no flash. Just truth. She said yes, like she'd never doubted it. Our wedding was small, honest, built on survival and choice, not illusion. And as I stood there, holding her hands, I realized something important. Winning isn't revenge. It isn't money. It's finding someone who stays when there's nothing left to gain. Before you go, I want to ask you something. When Madison finally confessed after everything was destroyed, do you think it mattered, or was it too late? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if this story made you feel something, don't forget to like and subscribe. More stories are waiting to be told.